Metropolitan Transportation Council. My name is Lance Macmillan, Regional Director for the New York State Department of Transportation in the Hudson Valley, and I'm also the Secretary to the Council today. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the NYMTC website within 2 weeks of the meeting. At this time, I will begin the roll call where when I announce your agency, I ask each principal or representative to state your name, agency, if applicable, and whom you are representing. I will begin with my favorite, the New York State Department of Transportation.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. New York City Department of Transportation.
Good morning, Dominguez.
New York Department of City Planning.
Hi, Connor Clark here for Dan Garodnick, our commissioner.
Thank you. Nassau County.
Robert DiCarlo, representing County Executive Bruce Blakeman.
Thank you. Suffolk County.
Thank you. Good morning, Darnell Tyson, representing Suffolk County Executive Ed Romaine.
Rockland County.
Stephen Powers, representing County Executive Edwin J. Day.
Putnam County. All right. Westchester County.
Ken Jenkins, Westchester County Executive.
Good morning, sir. Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Good morning, Allison Desreño, Chief Operating Officer of MTA Bridges and Tunnels, representing our Chairman, Jenna Lieber.
Thank you. And now the advisory members of the Council. Federal Transit Authority Administration, sorry. All right. How about Federal Highway Administration? All right. New Jersey Transit.
Good morning, Jeremy Colangelo, Chief Planner, representing President Calori.
Thank you. North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
Good morning, David Barron, Executive Director, NJTPA.
U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning, Matt Larita, representing US EPA Region 2 Administrator Michael Martucci.
Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Good morning, Mary Kay Murphy, Director of Planning at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, representing Executive Director Cotton.
And lastly, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Okay. Thank you. By the count, and as long as Adam gives me the wink, it looks like we have a quorum, right? All right. I would like to turn the meeting over now to Council Co-Chairs, New York State Department of Transportation Commissioner Therese Dominguez, and Special Advisor to the Nassau County Executive Robert DiCarlo.
Good morning, everybody. Therese Dominguez with New York State Department of Transportation. I have the honor of serving as Commissioner of New York State DOT and as permanent co-chair of NYMTC. And on behalf of Governor Kathy Hochul, it really is great to be with all of you this morning. Greatly appreciate the leadership and the collaboration with all of our NYMTC partners who are here today. A few acknowledgments. We did a roll call, but I want to acknowledge our leadership here at NYMTC first and foremost. Adam Levine, our Executive Director. Thank you, Adam, for all the great work that NYMTC does each and every day on behalf of all of our all of our partners across the board in New York and New Jersey. And to the team, to the NYMTC team. Each of you are huge contributors to all of this, and I just wanted to say a big thank you. To our incoming co-chair, Commissioner Ydanis Rodriguez from New York City Department of Transportation. Thank you very much for your leadership and for stepping up to serve as co-chair this year. Look forward to working with you in yet one more wonderful capacity, and always enjoy it. And to County Executive Ken Jenkins, we were in a little bit of an earlier meeting, and we've got some great new leaders around the table today. Certainly very much welcome your leadership at Westchester County. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. And to the MTA, Allison Desreño, thank you for representing Chairman Lieber. You do an enormous amount of work at TBTA, and we thank you for all of your efforts. Doug Rose for Dan Garodnick at the city. Thank you very much. And Stephen Powers, everybody here, we greatly appreciate it. Darnell Tyson, Robert DiCarlo, I think you're coming in as not new to New York by any stretch of the imagination, but new to NYMTC, and thank you for representing Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. We greatly appreciate it. Darnell, thank you for representing County Executive Ed Romaine. We appreciate that as well. And Stephen, for County Executive Ed Day, thank you. There's others here. They're all partners, both at the federal and state level and city. It takes all of us to actually think about and execute the work of NYMTC as a planning organization for the entire region. And I just, again, want to underscore my personal thanks. Why do we do it all? Because transportation is fundamentally integral to absolutely every aspect of our everyday lives as citizens of this incredible region and as citizens of the United States. How you actually move, making sure that you have an efficient transportation system, one that's available, accessible, and affordable and safe is critical to our economy, let alone our livelihoods on a daily basis. So whether you're a kid trying to walk to school, a parent pushing a stroller, or someone who needs to make sure that they've got wheelchair accessibility, that level of assistance, regardless of the mode of transportation you're choosing, if you're choosing to bike, take transit, drive, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you've got access and that your form of mobility, regardless of what you choose, is available. So it fundamentally is the thread that ties all of us who are here representing NYMTC together, and it's certainly core to DOT's collaborative partnership with the New York Metropolitan Transportation Committee. We really do appreciate everything. It's evident in how we're working to connect all of our communities across the state of New York and to our neighbors in New Jersey and across the Northeast in general. Supporting the initiatives that underscore all the work that we do in transportation is our leader, Governor Kathy Hochul. She's put forward an unprecedented funding level into transportation, really looking to modernize our New York state transportation infrastructure across the board, really ushering in a historic area of state investment, like I said, across the state. In her latest executive budget, Governor Hochul is seeking to bolster DOT's already impressive $33 billion capital plan with an additional $1 billion of investment to make sure that we've got the funding capacity to execute the remainder of our 2 years of our state capital plan. That's going to bring the total investment to $34 billion, setting a new standard of funding for infrastructure in New York State. Governor Hochul is championing the needs of all New Yorkers and all of the families here in New York by advancing a vision for a safer, healthier, and more affordable state, while collectively working to collaborate with all of the efforts of state DOT and all of our partners at NYMTC to actually make sure that that becomes a reality in everything that we do. We're creating safer roadways and providing pathways for both pedestrians, cyclists, while revitalizing our neighborhoods by reimagining infrastructure and eliminating barriers that have long contributed to congestion. Additionally, we're enhancing affordability in our communities by investing in public transit and improving access for transit hubs for all users. The past 3 years under our DOT capital plan have been very productive, and as we enter the 4th year, we celebrate the significant milestones that we as state DOT have achieved. In just the first 3 years, our initiatives have dramatically reshaped the state's infrastructure, resulting in the construction of 186 new bridges and the rehabilitation or improvement of 8,269 others. Furthermore, we've successfully constructed or upgraded 6,812 lane miles of roadways. This progress also includes the addition of hundreds of miles of bike lanes, sidewalks, shared use path, ADA compliant ramps, all designed to complement our active transportation strategic plan, which is soon to be published. With this year's focus on active transportation for this meeting here at NYMTC, I want to shine a light on some of the Department of Transportation's ongoing initiatives that are deeply rooted in this theme of active transportation and have been supported by NYMTC. You might not immediately associate the Bronx River Parkway with active transportation, but it serves as a remarkable illustration of it. The project, which involves replacing bridges along the parkway, will significantly enhance connectivity for all users, particularly cyclists and pedestrians, on one of the busiest roads in the metropolitan area. This initiative is part of NYMTC's Metropolitan planning process and features a new 12-foot wide shared use path that links users to the Bronx River Greenway, as well as several green spaces, parks, and a playground with basketball courts and a baseball field. For more than 70 years on Long Island, State Route 347 has evolved from a basic route for local farmers to a lively suburban thoroughfare teeming with restaurants, shopping facilities, hotels, parks, all accommodating over 60,000 vehicles daily. NYMTC has partnered with DOT to transform 347 into a safe, shared space for all users, including pedestrians, by collaborating throughout the various stages of planning and funding for the project that we've been executing. So far, 6 miles of the 12-mile corridor have been successfully finished, greatly improving safety and the quality of life for the entire community. Active transportation focuses on ensuring safety and reliability for people of all ages and for people of all abilities. And NYMTC is helping us achieve these goals as we reimagine the Route 9 corridor, which stretches from Sleepy Hollow to Hastings. The project will transform the roadway in several historic downtown areas in Westchester County, incorporating improvements for walking, biking, driving, and public transit. From the outset, NYMTC has been an integral partner in this endeavor, incorporating the project into its 2020 through 2024 plan. And by contributing to the Route 9 study, it has really, truly helped us to advance the work that we're doing for the safety improvements on this corridor, as well as all the enhancements for cyclists and bicyclists. These initiatives highlight New York State DOT's dedication to active transportation, as well as advancing our own active transportation strategic plan. But more importantly, they highlight how essential NYMTC's collaboration is in creating a dynamic future for New York. We appreciate your support, your collaboration, and the steadfast commitment to our communities, and thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. DiCarlo.
Thank you very much. Just a little, can you hear me? A little introduction, brief introduction. I'm fairly new to this position, representing County Executive Bruce Blakeman. I am the Deputy Chief County Executive in Nassau County. A little bit of more background. I'm a Brooklyn kid, so I understand both the city and the suburbs. I spent most of my life in Brooklyn, and now the last 25 years out on Long Island. So I can understand the transportation needs for both city and suburbs. Spent most of my young years riding the buses and the subways in New York City, and the last 20 some odd years mostly driving a car out in Nassau and Suffolk County. I have some experience as a former New York State Senator dealing with state transportation, dealing with the MTA, dealing with the New York City Transit Authority, and with suburban means of transportation. So I bring something to the table that I think is beneficial to this council. I'm not going to say a lot because, as I said earlier, I'm new to this and I'd like to listen more than to speak. But on behalf of County Executive Bruce Blakeman, who had the privilege of serving as co-chair of the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, I want to reaffirm Nassau County's commitment to strengthening our region's transportation network. Under his leadership, Nassau County continues to make progress in updating technology to modernize infrastructure, enhance safety, and improve efficiency, enhancing public transit through strategic investments that ease congestion and expand accessibility, addressing Nassau County's evolving needs with forward-thinking initiatives that provide sustainability and economic growth. One of the most significant projects that has been the Nassau Hub Transit Initiative, which will establish a rapid transit service connecting the Rosa Parks Hempstead Transit Center to the Long Island Railroad Main Line station in Westbury. This initiative eases congestion and improves connectivity. With strong partnerships and a shared vision, we are building a future where transportation is smarter, safer, and more connected. County Executive Blakeman extends his sincere gratitude to all who have contributed to these efforts, and we look forward to continuing this important work together. So thank you.
Ordinarily, I would give my executive director's report now, but because of scheduling conflicts, I'd like to give incoming co-chair Commissioner Dominguez Rodriguez the opportunity to provide his remarks. Commissioner?
Thank you. And first of all, good morning, everyone. I'm here together with Deputy Commissioner Paul Ochoa, who will take my seat after I leave. I have a hard stop meeting because I hard stop because I have another meeting that I must be there. Paul Ochoa, former Director of Legislation for the City of New York, but now oversee budget, grants, HR, plus other big portfolio at DOT. On behalf of Mayor Eric Adams, our leader in the city, I would like to thank you, everyone that care for transportation. Under this administration, as I became commissioner in 2022, I saw an increase of 18% of my budget that this mayor provides to DOT. And in 2023, he added another $400 million for us to continue doing the projects that are important. We, as former council members, the role of elected officials is to make commissioners accountable so the council do their job. But in 2023, we built 32 protected bike lanes, which is not the 50, but the 32 protected bike lanes are larger than the numbers of protected bike lanes that all largest city in this nation built together. So that's New York City. I do want to give a special shout out to Aaron Levine, Gary Bogart, and all the NYMTC staff that does such important work on behalf of everyone in the region who relies on our transportation network, which is to say every single New Yorkers and visitors and residents of this region. Thank you for the great work that you do together with your team. On behalf of Mayor Eric Adams, once again, it's an honor for me to serve as NYMTC co-chair alongside Commissioner Dominguez, a great leader at the national level and now in the state level for the coming year. We too have been partners on many great projects, challenging one, such as the BQE to the Cross Bronx. Happy to be here with you. I don't have to tell all of you when it comes to cities. New York City is a giant. As the largest city in the country, based on the density, it's the most density city that we have in the whole nation. 8.6 million people, 64 million visitors, and we are only made by 350 square miles. But we had to create opportunity for everyone to move around. We have the capacity and the talent to function in a way that many states do. As a transportation agency for New York City DOT is not different. As you all know, New York City DOT is responsible for a vast network of public infrastructure, including planning, design, construction, maintenance, and management of road. 27% of our land is under the portfolio of DOT, and the New York City Charter is clear. Our responsibility to guarantee a safe and efficient movement of people and vehicle. And vehicle is not cars only, it's not trucks only. Our scooters, our bicycle, either pedal assisting bike, as New York City has changed. All of that is made possible thanks to nearly 6,000 men and women at DOT, previous commissioners that took the agency to where I took it in 2022, operating a budget 1.4 billion expense and a 34 billion capital for 10 years. Even as large as we are, though we realize that we can't always go it alone. NYMTC is a central element of good planning and governance across our many jurisdictions boundaries. Across 31 counties in the 3 states, NYMTC represents an economy powerhouse that made up nearly 10% of the United States economy as measured by the gross domestic product, GDP. Because of that size, it's important to have an organization like NYMTC, helping members agency like ours, making sure we keep lines of communication open and bring home as many federal dollars for transportation as possible. Federal money unlocks transportation projects that help us to both enhance and preserve our critical system. The BQE and the Cross Bronx are a great example of our work. When these highways were first built, before most of us were born, there was little regional planning and even less community consultation about how we might get the best access for the nearby communities, never mind our entire region. The results of such undemocratic process in the middle of the last century were predictable. We have lived with several generations of highway congestions, limited access to open space, unsafe pedestrian conditions, as well as air noise pollution, all contributing to some of the worst health outcomes in the country for the neighborhood nearest this area. There's a connection between that condition and the larger numbers of people who died during COVID, because most people die because of pre-health conditions. We are proud that we have taken on the job of engaging Bronx and Brooklyn communities and coming up with plans for both of these roads that can and will forever change New York City in the coming years, not only for the present, but for future generations. NYMTC, though, is not just about project delivery. It's also about planning for the future and collectively setting shared goals and values. As co-chair, during the coming years, I look forward to talking about New York City's own values and vision, environmental sustainability, and building to adapt to the threat of climate change, powered by both human and clean energy, and ensuring our transportation system provides equitable access for all residents and visitors. That means for the transportation infrastructure we built, but also creating a contracting system and an agency that reflect the people they serve. We are making incredible progress on both those fronts during my tenure at DOT. Since I directed our team to prioritize all aspects of equity, we have increased our MWBE participation from 11% when I took the agency in January 2022 to 32% in 2.5 years. And for the first time in New York City DOT history, management roles in the agency reflect the composition of the city of New York. That's the legacy that I want to leave as we take care of the pothole, the 800 bridges, the 6,000 miles of street. On the equity front, I have worked hard to ensure one of my major legacy as commissioner is not only to be the only commissioner of color in the room, but to persuade my other brothers who are not people of color to understand that our children and the grandchildren deserve to see leadership that reflect our society. On that front, I want to make sure everyone here knows about our second annual Equity Motion Summit. On Friday, April 25th of this year, we're going to be holding our second annual Equity in Motion Summit at the CUNY Graduate Center. Leaders from 20 cities already have RSVP, and many other global leaders, they already RSVP to come to spend a whole day to share good practice and also to share our vision on how we look at equity. Equity is not only looking at a P community of colors. It's about working class community. It's about reconnecting community. With that, I'd like to say thank you for this great platform.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we're going to get a report from NYMTC's Executive Director, Adam Levine.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. And thank you to all of our attendees in our audience who have joined us today. As has already been discussed, our theme this year is Proactive Mobility, Planning a Dynamic Future. Our goal in selecting that theme was to center our conversation on the area of active transportation, an area that has seen tremendous growth in both the urban and suburban portions of the NYMTC region. Just put that down there. As I reflect on the decision process that brought us to this topic, it seems kind of obvious, right? I mean, if I were to take a poll of everyone in this room and ask how many of you used some form of active transportation to come to today's meeting, I think the number would be both substantial and completely unsurprising. Active transportation has been growing and moving closer to the center of the transportation conversation for years, or more accurately, for decades. Well before the worldwide shortage of bicycles that came about during the COVID pandemic, well before our watches became another piece of fitness gear and not just timepieces, and even well before so many of us were door dashing or Grubhubbing our dinners, if we can remember back that far, active transportation has been making tremendous strides. That progress has been brought about in good measure by the leadership on this stage, past and or present and past, across projects too numerous to even begin to start listing. And we are all grateful for that leadership. Thank you. This past year at NYMTC, we have helped our members facilitate this growth, whether it was writing letters in support of grant applications for programs included in the bipartisan infrastructure law, or holding community planning workshops that help local municipalities make their downtowns more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, or connecting the members of our Thriving Communities Network with resources from AARP to help them perform community walk audits. NYMTC staff and members are taking every step we can to ensure this growth continues now and into the future. And speaking of the future, the development of our next long-range transportation plan, moving forward 2055, will include an active transportation plan that will capture the energy and vibrancy of the work being done in this area. Moving Forward 2055 has been one of the major efforts advanced this past year by NYMTC, and it addresses many other key areas, including safety, freight, technology, alternative energy, curb and parking management, and human services transportation. Each of those areas were subjects of topical forums that gathered public input critical to the development of the upcoming plan. As its name suggests, the draft plan will include demographic forecasts and a transportation vision out to the year 2055, and it will be presented for public comment later this year. Another major effort undertaken this past year was the development of a new Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. The current TIP, adopted in 2022 and covering the years from 2023 to 27, includes over 1,000 federally funded projects and studies spanning the NYMTC region, from northern Putnam to eastern Suffolk, and totals just under $37 billion. The upcoming TIP will take us from 2026 to 2030, and NYMTC staff and members have been working tirelessly to complete all the steps necessary for both of these major efforts, including socioeconomic and demographic forecasting, traffic modeling, and air quality conformity analysis. The new TIP will also be presented for public comment later this year, and we are looking forward to gathering together again in September to adopt them both. As I mentioned a moment ago, NYMTC staff and members are tireless, and while those are two of the major efforts advanced this past year, they were by no means the only ones. We made significant progress on several studies, including a Palisades Shared Use Path study in Rockland County and New Jersey, a safety needs and technologies assessment for our suburban counties, a transit service coordination needs assessment, and a regional waste movement study. Our very successful Brown Bag webinar educational series continued through the year, sharing the achievements of our members and others, including the New York City Department of City Planning's City of Yes initiative, Suffolk County's Reimagined Transit Bus Network redesign, and the MTA's massive efforts to improve accessibility throughout their transit network. Our Brown Bag session next month will be given by NYMTC staff, and it will present the findings of our latest hub-bound report on travel into Manhattan's Central Business District. The information wheel in your bags gives a sneak peek into those findings, so tune in just a few weeks for the full story. I want to be certain to mention our Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, which will be the subject of one of our upcoming action items today. This has been another great collaborative effort among staff and members that you'll hear a lot more about from that great team in a few minutes. Our Travel Survey Community of Practice had a successful year, bringing together agency staff, our university partners, and leaders from the United States and Europe to share best practices and harmonize all of our efforts. This collaboration will help improve the upcoming Regional Household Travel Survey that we hope to kick off later this year. After a brief pause, NYMTC awarded September 11th Memorial Scholarships to 6 graduate students in the New York, New Jersey area. The scholarships honor the memory of those NYMTC staff who perished in the attacks of September 11th, 2001. The students worked closely with our members on studies to address key issues of the day, and we are pleased that one of our previous scholarship recipients has recently joined the NYMTC family. More on the current recipients and their efforts will also come later this year. As I conclude my report, regular attendees to our meetings may note that I usually end by thanking NYMTC staff and members. I want to take an extra moment to reflect on and emphasize that point. As someone who has devoted a career to public service, I am honored to represent the dedicated and selfless team of NYMTC staff, every one of whom has taken their tremendous talents and expertise and poured their time and themselves into improving the lives of millions of their neighbors in New York City, Long Island, the Lower Hudson Valley, and beyond. To you and to our members, I offer my own small but incredibly heartfelt appreciation. Thank you. I will now turn the meeting back to Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Adam. Put the microphone back on here. Greatly appreciate the report and the exciting things that you outlined for the future here. It's a good review, but also teeing up a lot of good, important things that we're looking at in the future. With that, I'd like to move to our featured speaker today, our keynote speaker, and do an introduction of Ryan Russo, who is the Executive Director of the National Association of City Transportation Officials, otherwise known as NACTO. NACTO is an association of North American cities and transit agencies. They curate best practices, connect members, and advocate for cities to make bold, innovative, and people-first changes in urban transportation. Many of you know Ryan. He has 25 years of experience in transportation and city planning, executing some of the most transformative transportation projects in the nation. He has served as the first director of Oakland's Department of Transportation, where he led the new agency with its inaugural 5-year operational plan and execution. And under his leadership, OCDOT, which is what Oakland's Department of Transportation is known as, became a national model for incorporating equity into transportation planning, policy, programs, and operations. Previously, Ryan spent 14 years here in New York City at the DOT, and that's why I'm saying some of you may know him, remember him well from his days here, ultimately rising to the position of Deputy Commissioner and serving as an instrumental leader in the transformation of NYC DOT's focus on moving cars and trucks to meeting the needs of the residents and businesses and certainly the visitors here to the city. Ryan has also led New York City to several firsts, including North America's first on-street parking protected bike lanes, pedestrian plazas, and the Times and Herald Square initiatives that we're all familiar with now, and the Vision Zero plan that New York City has successfully executed. With that, I welcome Ryan to our annual meeting here at NYMTC and look forward to your remarks.
I appreciate that very warm welcome and such great presentations that earlier did not get rounds of applause. Can we get some applause for all of those updates that we heard from the co-chairs? Really, really wonderful to be here and honored to get this invitation. I want to thank Executive Director Levine, Co-Chair Dominguez, Co-Chair Rodriguez for the invitation, and the rest of the commission for inviting me here to speak. I think on a really exciting to see you emphasizing active transportation, but really this is just part of our full transportation system, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the NACTO communities work and how it fits into kind of all of our communities, whether it's the cities or the suburbs that we're talking about. I'm also particularly excited that this is a bit of a homecoming, and my career, as you heard, has emphasized, it's been in cities. I've had 20 years of public service, and I'd like to pause there and emphasize kind of this moment. NACTO represents public servants. Our members are the folks at city DOTs and transit agencies doing the hard work every day. It's an honor of my life to be a public servant. And, you know, public servants, it is not a great moment for public servants, and I want to sort of echo the message that we heard, that people are trying to make their communities better. They're coming to work every day, and we really should honor that, and we need to counter some of the messages that are out there right now about what public service is about. So anyway, I was a public servant in New York City for 14 years, public servant in Oakland, California for 5 years, but I got my start, had my origin in the NYMTC region as a reverse of Mr. DiCarlo. I started in Nassau County. I live in Brooklyn currently. I grew up in Mineola, and it's not many presentations I give that I get to talk about Mineola, but here at NYMTC, now that we're talking about this region, I'm excited to incorporate sort of that into my remarks, because as I've sort of thought about what drove me personally and what is affecting all of our communities and all of our children, it's really the way our communities operate, the way our rights of way, as Commissioner Rodriguez says, are managed, that have profound impacts on ultimately our outcomes, our happiness, our success. So just a few slides about NACTO. You heard some of it in the introduction. We work to make cities and transportation networks safe, accessible, equitable, and sustainable. How do we do that? Through our members. Members pay us dues. The members are government transit agencies and city departments of transportation. We have about 100 members. About 90 of them are sort of the city managers of rights-of-way, traffic signals, crosswalks, stoplights, roadway markings, pedestrian ramps, doing all of that work. And so we are working to empower them to get the best practices on the ground, to get the streets transformed, to make the streets safer, more efficient, more sustainable. We do this, we connect those members, we mobilize them so that they can achieve this people-first transportation, that they can take bold and brave steps in doing this work like you see in this transformation from Philadelphia. How do we do that? We convene, we have a flagship conference, the Designing Cities Conference. We have additional events, both virtual and in person. The Designing Cities Conference began here in New York in 2012. It's happened pretty much every year with a break during the pandemic in one of our member cities. There's a lot of different transportation conferences out there. Someone has called the Designing Cities Conference the Coachella of transportation conferences. I'm quoting them. So it's a wonderful conference because it's really put cities first and the city practitioners first. The presentations are about the cities and how they do the work, and they connect with one another and become a support system for one another as they face challenges like funding or hiring, staffing shortages, procurement issues. They connect and build relationships at that Designing Cities Conference. Our next Designing Cities Conference is in Washington, D.C., apropos for 2025. There's a lot of action happening there in Washington. So May 28th to 31st, you can just go to NACTO.org and there's an events and conference link if you want to learn more about our conference. We also collaborate. Like I said, we get the bike planner or the transit planner or the director of the budget from every city who has the same job together in a discussion forum online. They can ask each other questions. They can share best practices. They can say, which is the most rugged flex post that you're using in that, when a truck runs over it, it doesn't make your operations team have to go repair it. And they share that knowledge, and we elevate and we bring them together so that they can share with one another, and we elevate those best practices. We communicate the best practices. We do leadership at the national level. We participated in the dialogue around the MUTCD. We are in an alphabet soup of transportation folks. This is a group I probably don't have to say what the MUTCD is, but I will for the audience at home. The Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's the thing that says a stop sign should have 8 sides and the letter should be in all cap in that particular font. But it says a lot of other things so that the stop sign when you go to Florida and when you go to Washington, it looks the same. We can't have each state doing a different kind of stop sign. But it's had a lot of other rules that have tied the hands of communities locally, like a crossing treatment that you see in this photo maybe wasn't allowed because it wasn't explicitly in the MUTCD. We worked to make that MUTCD a lot more flexible, particularly around the establishment of speed limits. Speed limits historically have been it's sort of one of these strange laws that's just established by the commons. We see how fast people are driving, and that pretty much sets the speed limit. And then if people drive faster, we keep raising the speed limit. And so NACTO was a major champion in getting those policies changed in that Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We curate, so those members talking with one another, developing their best practices. We will turn them into a working group and turn that into nationally recognized design guides, papers, and policy statements. So NACTO has published multiple books that are not just for the NACTO membership, they're for the community of people trying to change streets, and they are leading publications in the field. And excitingly, I have our newest publication, which came out just in January, the 3rd edition of the Urban Bikeway Design Guide, which weave into today's remarks, but it really is a best practices guide on not just how to build a bike lane, but the planning processes that you should go for doing any kind of improved transportation system in your community. It really has the cutting edge best practices for leadership, for funding, for staffing, for planning, for traffic signal timing, and really will be the, in many ways, you know, the Bible for street design going forward. We generally put our guides for free in a web version on our website because we want these ideas to spread. So what are these ideas? And what are we trying to achieve at the end of the day with this work that we're all doing? I want to talk about the concept of connection and whether we're connecting more or disconnecting each other in how we design and operate our communities. So let's go back to Mineola, if you don't mind. So on the bottom right, we've got the Long Island Railroad operated by our friends at the MTA. The unlabeled star was 326 First Street, where yours truly grew up, whose father, the first from Brooklyn, the first in the family to go to college, St. John's University, took that Long Island Railroad into Midtown every day to his accounting job, and then his son was there biking around this little, you know, mainline suburb. Could walk to his middle school, walk to his elementary school, really like Kevin Arnold from the Wonder Years, you know, in theory, like the idyllic semi-suburban childhood. But there was an issue. State Route 25, Jericho Turnpike. Some of you might be familiar with this. Some of you in the other NYMTC counties might have your own version of Jericho Turnpike or State Route 25. These larger arterials in which the priority has been to move traffic as fast as possible and serve as barriers between neighborhoods and communities. And for me, it just so turned out that everyone in my grade, everyone I wanted to play with after school, even though I could bike around my neighborhood, was on the other side, the north side of Jericho Turnpike. And so I spent many hours either biking around with no one to connect with and play with, or doing something that we know all too well about today. My thing was watching way too much TV or playing way too many video games. So we know that we have, in our dialogue today, that we have an epidemic among our children and our youth that they're not watching as much TV, but they're watching YouTube, they're watching TikTok, they're playing lots of video games. And if you've read the book by Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation, it talks about how the creation of the front-facing camera on our smartphones led to this explosion in anxiety and depression. But if you read the book, what's getting less press, because this is leading to our governor, Kathy Hochul, proposing cell phone bans in schools to try to reverse this trend, right? Schools are thinking about realizing that the smartphone caused all of these issues. But if you read the book, the root, the soil that this weed was planted in was the way our communities are designed. We are underprotective in the virtual world, but we became overprotective in the real world. Because without that ability to develop independence, to connect with your neighbors, to maybe get bullied on the playground, to fight back after you're bullied on the playground, if you're just home on video games, if you're not connecting in the real world, you don't build the resilience so that when you go off to college, we get this explosion of anxiety and depression among our youth. And so can we design our communities to provide that connection? And that's what the NACTO membership has been doing. New York City with the Open Streets program, having events on the weekends where the streets are opened to pedestrians and cyclists and community events where that connection could be made. Boston, redesigning arterial streets, providing protected bike lanes, connecting people across those arterial roads. Cambridge and cities around the country, repurposing streets for public plazas where people can connect with one another. So, yes, a high-minded idea of connection, and we should connect our work to this idea. But, sorry, before I get into that, this book really gives you the how-to to help get those best practices that are happening in our NACTO network into your community. And it can be suburban communities. So I just have some visuals from our new urban bikeway design guide of how we can design our intersections, how even in suburban contexts we can calm traffic so that people are willing to walk in their neighborhoods and connect with their neighbors, how they can provide bike networks and public plazas. Okay, so now moving on. Connection's important, but really at government, our number one job is protection, is safety. And we talk a lot about safety concerns and security concerns, and when we're not providing that public that safety, we are really failing. So let's go back to Mineola. So I really miss Friendlies. How many people have been to a Friendlies? Yeah, the Reese's Pieces Sundae. So one of the moments of connection through my middle school years was, we would have the middle school dances. And it was still the idea that you could walk in the neighborhood, and everyone went to Friendlies when the dance ended. It was the thing you did, and it was like this, 6th, 7th, 8th grade moment where you had that independence and you could walk and go with some friends. Maybe your parents gave you $10 and you could get that $5.59 Reese's Pieces sundae with 5 scoops of ice cream. And it was really wonderful. But it became tragic for me when I was walking with my friends to the Friendlies because it was on the other side of Jericho Turnpike. And one of the 8th graders that I knew well, when I got to the intersection, was surrounded in a crowd, and an ambulance had come, and he was covered in blood and had 2 broken legs, hit by a speeding car on Jericho Turnpike. So this was a harbinger of kind of what has been happening in our communities around the country. The United States is having, frankly, pretty much an explosion in pedestrian fatalities. Around 4,000 in 2010, 2009. Interestingly, right when cities started trying to declare Vision Zero to take this on and doing a lot of great work in their cities. But we're approaching 8,000 pedestrian deaths a year. In terms of overall traffic fatalities, the rest of the developed world has a consistent downward trend. This is adjusted for population. The United States has been trying to go down, but also started going back up. So a lot of people in our field are talking about what is causing this, and there's actually, no one can actually give one answer. There's a lot to it. There's car bloat, larger cars, distracted driving, maybe more use of substances. There's a lot to it. But the one thing you can't deny is that America's population has shifted to places that were built in the automobile era. More people live in the Southwest. More people live in communities built to accommodate the automobile, and the correlations in the pedestrian fatality rates are stunning. So if you look at a city, or you look at a state, states that most of their population live in communities, whether it's rural, suburban, small town, urban, most people are living in areas built before 1945, the pedestrian fatality rate is much lower. So Florida has for every 100,000 people, there's 3.5 deaths per year. Illinois, 1.5. This isn't 10% differences. This is more than double. And that pattern plays out in our cities. So our member city, Boston. Boston has a Vision Zero program, but even if it didn't, its pedestrian fatality rate of 1.7 per 100,000, as opposed to a city in Dallas, the city of Dallas in Texas, that was built in the automobile era predominantly, 5.5 deaths per 100,000. And this plays out, since we're talking about the region, this plays out between city and suburb. Even though Manhattan has millions of people who come in every day, just on a per residential population basis, and even though Manhattan has 10, 20, 50, 100 times more walking than maybe Nassau County, just on a per resident basis, Nassau County has more deaths per 100,000 people as pedestrians than in Manhattan. And you can find this in communities around the country, that even though the cities have been declaring Vision Zero and working hard, it's actually the suburban communities that have the higher fatality rates just per person. So our communities are taking on this challenge and spreading best practices. Just things like what we call turn traffic calming, started here in New York City DOT, is spreading to cities like Chicago and Austin, Texas, that just provide little bit of bumps that make sure the turn isn't cut short and fast. This is something that could happen in throughout our regions. Crossing treatments, maybe standard traffic engineering stuff, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFBs, if we want to build on the acronyms of today here in Long Beach, California. And then redesigning those large arterials. And I want to credit Commissioner Rodriguez for seeing through something that began under Mayor Bill de Blasio, the redesign of Queens Boulevard, an arterial that had the reputation of the Boulevard of Death, finally taking that on with the NACTO palette of design tools to make it a place that, instead of divided the neighborhoods in Queens, but connected them, made it crossable, and made it walkable and bikeable, and made it more vibrant for local businesses. Again, our Urban Bikeway Design Guide provides lots of inspiration and lots of how-tos on how to do these things, to improve crossings, to make intersections more humane, to provide protected, safe cycling networks. I want to sort of pause here and talk about safety, because these practices spread not just in the NACTO network, they were really on the cusp of spreading around the country. The US DOT, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, established a program called Safe Streets and Roads for All. And they had funding to get communities around the country, MPOs, counties, cities, small towns, villages, Native American reservations, all received funding. Red places, blue places, purple places, all received funding to say, how can we design our streets and plan our streets so that kids can cross their Jericho turnpikes? We don't know if this program is on the chopping block. We don't know if these funds will be impounded. It is imperative that this community, that suburban locations, urban locations join together to say that safe, connected communities is not a partisan issue, that it's an issue that everyone wants the ability to cross the street. Everyone should be able to get that Reese's Pieces sundae at Friendly's without being scared. So safety is tremendously important. And we've had a lot of talk about safety because it's a crisis. But really, we do, in the NACTO community and this transportation professional community, want to move our communities. Too often, Vision Zero and safety has been framed as something as we want to take away the mobility of our communities. We want to take cars away from people. No, we want a transportation system that works for all. And there's some public opinion data that supports this. Before I get there, here in Mineola, when I went back to prepare, I went on Google Street View back to my hometown and saw what had happened since then. Well, it's not surprising that more and more people have been driving to the school for drop-off and pickup. And I saw that the lawn that I used to play Frisbee with after school with the other students had been turned into a drop-off lane. It's spending those funds and emphasizing a car-based transportation system, even in a traditionally pre-war built community where everyone really used to walk. So this is the spiral we have if we have investments that are emphasizing just automobility for transportation. So it is popular. 98% of US commuters favor public transportation for others. My favorite Onion headline that has been ever there for given our field. And it's kind of a joke. Yes, people will like, yes, I'm okay with you investing in public transportation because it'll get my neighbors out of the car so that I can drive. And that's a joke, but it's true. Like, this is the chance, this is the vision, and what we don't talk about, we talk about speeding up buses for, excuse me, this is advancing automatically. Go backwards. Oh, wrong. I'm sorry, I hit the back. Hitting the forward button. Okay. We talk about speeding up buses, but speeding up buses doesn't just help the bus rider. For every bus rider we get on the bus, we get someone out of a car to make room for those other people in the car. So yes, it's an Onion headline, but it is what our communities are trying to do to try to find that balanced, comprehensive transportation system so people can achieve what they want. They can get to their work, they can get to their education, they can connect with their communities. So we see it in Los Angeles, we see it in Indianapolis, and we see it here in New York, where New York City DOT and the MTA have partnered on a network of bus priority streets, most recently ribbon cut here on the M96 for a crosstown route. Worked on many of these projects that have created a transit priority system around the city. But obviously we have the biggest experiment of all and the biggest lesson about the benefits to, yes, those drivers who want public transit to work for others so that they can drive. That's the moment we're in with congestion pricing. This is the moment we have with saying, maybe we didn't emphasize it enough on the run-up. I was hoping we would emphasize it more, but the biggest beneficiaries are the truck drivers, the taxi drivers, and the regular drivers who have to drive because they won't face chronic congestion. We're doing this work not just for someone who depends on the bus. We're doing it for the whole system, including the drivers. We're not trying to take cars away from people. The United States is car dependent, but if we have a full transportation system, it can work better for everyone. So our cities are trying to create that mobility system. Again, our urban bikeway design guide in our community can help make that happen with how-to guides. We have a transit street design guide, and we have 10 transit agency members in our NACTO community. MTA currently isn't one of them. We would maybe like them to rejoin our community, in which we outline how cities and transit agencies can partner together to keep their buses moving. Okay, I have to close with a little bit about spending because NYMTC is about the money, right? Like at the end of the, it is and it isn't, but the money is a big part of it because ultimately budgets, they're the statements of values, and how we decide what to spend our funding on is it's the old put your money where your mouth is. The reality is our current spending, while there's been a lot of progress, it does not prioritize connecting, protecting, and moving. And just to give a bit of perspective about local communities, and this could be a city, or it could be an incorporated village, the incorporated village of Mineola or White Plains or New Rochelle. We're at the bottom. We see ourselves as at the bottom in a bit of a David versus Goliath. The federal government can do deficit spending. They don't have to maintain lots of assets. States get large amounts of formula funds that they can spend on highway widening, highway maintenance, new interchanges, upgrades. Regional doesn't really have assets to maintain, but their governance system will often dictate their funding outcome. And then at the local, we have limited capacity for our local revenue generation, yet we have the most local streets and roads. So we really struggle with prioritization and with achieving our goals. So there's two ideas here that our local governments, because we are democratic and because we're the front line representing what government is, they're under intense pressure to be responsive. New York City, for example, we put in a 311 system. Anybody just call their phone, 311, go online, get a request. And we have to say, how fast did the pothole get filled? There's supposed to be an army of public servants who will run and fill that pothole. Or maybe you say, let's go, there's speeding traffic in my neighborhood. So there are more requests than we have resources to give out. And this is what the challenge of the people who were in the seats I had as a director of a Department of Transportation is, well, how do we give those out in a way to achieve our goals and to be fair and to live our values? Those request-driven systems can often exacerbate inequities. They can distribute resources inefficiently. This is a map early in the Vision Zero days in New York City. We asked people to complain about where they thought the safety problems were, and then we did the data on where the safety problems actually were. The red lines and the red clouds are where the safety problems actually are, and the dots are where people complained. And you'll find this in communities around the country, but no surprise that a wealthier, a whiter community with the resources to go to the community meeting and the capacity and the organization in Park Slope, lots of safety complaints, but not a lot of safety crashes. Same for Astoria in Queens. This isn't where the crashes are. The crashes are in Brownsville, the crashes are in East New York, the crashes are on Flatbush Avenue. And I saw this in my career in public service of where we went to on-sites at the New York City DOT to look at conditions. Where were elected officials? We have a former state senator from Bay Ridge. We would go to Bay Ridge a lot because they'd say there's speeding traffic, and can you come and maybe add a left turn signal at this intersection on 4th Avenue? I never got to an on-site east of Flatbush Avenue where predominantly communities of color live. Because if you're struggling and paying 50% of your income on rent, you're likely not calling your elected official to say, come slow down traffic, or calling 311. And so our communities are figuring out how to distribute those limited resources in ways that can solve the problem. How can we prevent those collisions on those Jericho turnpikes, even while we're managing this dynamic? So in Oakland, California, we explicitly adopted a policy, an equity-driven paving plan, to say we've got money for repaving and there's potholes everywhere, but if someone in the Park Slope of Oakland breaks their axle in one of our potholes, they're not going to end up homeless. They're not going to miss a rent payment. They're not going to get fired for their warehouse job because they were late. They're going to call their insurance company and get a second car or order a Lyft or an Uber. But if someone who is a single mom and spending 50% of their income on their housing breaks their axle in a pothole in East Oakland, like East New York, that could cause homelessness. And so we said, let's divert those limited resources in a way, let's spread them around in a way that tries to prevent that, tries to create those outcomes. New York City DOT has done a similar thing in response to what it learned with all of this work on Vision Zero. It's established priority investment areas to say, we looked at our historic investment patterns, and because the squeaky wheel was Park Slope or the Upper West Side, we need to make sure and hold ourselves accountable and make sure that there's funding going to Crown Heights and East New York and Brownsville and the South Bronx. So can that be replicated at the regional level? Can we do that with our other funding systems, with the formula funds that come to our states, that come through the MPOs? I think it would be wonderful if we could. We're seeing things happen in other states, like in Pennsylvania. Those funds that were just in theory, but actually are quite flexible, that formula go to the highway departments, the state DOTs, were flexed to the transit agency in Philadelphia to make sure that there's still a vibrant public transportation system in Philadelphia. And maybe that's something we need to look at in states around the country, and not just divert the funding to transit features, but divert it to crossing islands on Jericho Turnpike so that people can walk to the Friendlies. By the way, the gentrification hit Mineola. The Friendlies is a taco place that's like painted charcoal gray. It's a little bit disappointing. But this spending of what we could do, it really shows what we could do. So I'll end with going back to my middle school. On the left, you see the service road that they built in Mineola Middle School. And on the right in the blue square, the one place I had that connection with friends, the friends who were north of Jericho Turnpike would come and get across on the weekends, and we would play tackle football on a field right behind the middle school. What has the middle school done since I left? They've turned it into a parking lot. Wouldn't that funding would have been better on a new science lab for the school? Or maybe some pedestrian islands on Jericho Turnpike? So I hope we all can join together. It's really exciting to have NYMTC here talking about this work, that they share our vision of cities that have safe, sustainable, equitable transportation systems that connect communities to the resources they need to thrive. Our bike guide provides the vision for sustainable, safe, vibrant, equitable, and economically strong communities, and we're really looking forward to leading and having more people as part of our movement. Thank you.
All right, Ryan, thank you so very much. You gave lots of food for thought. Love the home run on Mineola, making it real, making it personal, and making it specific to our NYMTC region. I'm going to open it up a little bit here. If there's any questions from our members, if anybody has any questions for Ryan, share some of your experiences. Anyone? Okay, with that, let me, we're going to do a little bit of a roundtable discussion since we don't have any direct questions right now. I'll kind of kick it off. I know we've been throwing around the term active transportation, but maybe we could just level set a little bit and talk about exactly what we mean by active transportation and define the term, the set of terms a little bit, make sure we're all talking about the same thing. I think from our perspective, when we talk about active transportation, we're talking about something that's either powered by a human, like walking or biking or rolling, or something that's powered by a small-scale battery, like an e-bike or an e-scooter. And e-bikes and e-scooters are generally what's thought of when we engage the term micro-mobility, right? So we're looking at all different forms of transportation. But from a statewide perspective, we know there's tremendous growth in the adoption of active transportation across the state. State DOT, for instance, has really been working with a number of our non-MTA transit authorities across the state on enhancing micro-mobility and offering different, whether it's on-demand services or some of the other upstate transit agencies have also looked at how do we expand use of scooters and bikes and everything else. But it's that level of engagement and that level of innovation that really takes us to the next step to really understand what communities are looking for and how do people actually want to move. And so I just wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about, from your perspective, and all of the members here, whether you're city, county, agency level, just engaging you all, what have you all seen specifically as some of the opportunities as well as some of the challenges, perhaps for active transportation in your respective communities? Anything that we could highlight and kind of further engage Ryan while he's here, but also ourselves as members of NYMTC.
I just had a thought, and you're the expert, and I'm from Mineola, is where my office is, and Bay Ridge is where I was born and raised. Are there any analysis? When I was there as a state senator, people would complain, obviously, from Bay Ridge, Niagara Heights, Bensonhurst. People are driving their cars too fast. And what they did in certain areas in my district, which I thought didn't make a lot of sense, was on, for example, 14th Avenue, which is a major, it's not a street, it's an avenue. Because neighbors complain so much about people speeding through the neighborhood, they put up stop signs on almost every block on an avenue. And I found that most drivers were more reckless because they were so annoying that they would run these stop signs all the time. So I thought that was more dangerous than it was good. And the same thing is out on Long Island in Nassau County and in Suffolk County, where in neighborhoods where people live, they put a stop sign on almost every single block because the politicians got calls from the neighbors. And I thought it was just much more dangerous when you do that. What do you say about that?
I can't resist a bit more origin story here. So 326 First Street was the busy street that led to the railroad. And there was the village had put up a very unique stop sign called the hinged stop sign that the village police would come only on school days and unfurl it so that the kids could cross First Street because it was the speeding traffic. My father's bedroom faced that stop sign, and the speeding traffic would keep him up at night. And he started sneaking out at night and lowering said stop sign. So it goes to show that communities want slow traffic. They want neighborhoods. They want quiet communities. In New York City, that MUTCD has actually provided a lot of guidance. There's a lot of debate of whether it's guidance or standards and how strictly you need to follow these things. Traffic engineering is this funny thing that mixes between technical profession and legislative, because the legislator can overrule the traffic engineers. In New York City, I actually, as a urban planner, often argued with our traffic engineers that maybe there should be a stop sign here based on the community complaint, but they would make sure that it had met a minimum amount of cross traffic, that you don't want a stop sign just willy-nilly anywhere. There has to be, in essence, that risk that you might get teed, that there's enough people either walking, biking, or driving perpendicular to you to warrant that stop. And in general, my experience is that New York City has done that pretty rigorously, and it's just with more and more travel, they would generally deploy those stop signs appropriately. I have seen in communities, and I think it's more likely in a suburban community, to just get the request. You have lower staff capacity around the engineering analysis to just say, let's make them happy and put that stop sign. And as much as I'm a champion of calming traffic, slow traffic, quiet communities, if you put the stop sign where maybe there isn't that perpendicular, sorry that we're getting into lots of weeds here, isn't that perpendicular traffic or that risk of a crash, what you find is people don't respect the stop sign, and that sort of culture of non-compliance can create more risk than benefits.
Thank you.
Hey Ryan, you mentioned Queens Boulevard, and I think in the topic of active transportation, I think the infrastructure that leads to active transportation is really important to talk about. As you very well know, we spent maybe over a year, 2 years in planning Queens Boulevard, the capital project. There was a lot of community opposition from electeds of all levels, from community boards, from essentially anyone who lived in Queens Boulevard.
Not everyone. Not everyone.
Right. We are now in phase 4, and guess what? We haven't heard a beep. Yeah. And that just shows that I think tweaking, hearing, having places where we can listen to concerns is really important, but sometimes we just have to plow through. And guess what? Most of the times the issues die down. And now it's again, we're now in phase 4, and we face 0 opposition. In fact, a lot of the community is welcoming the expansion to Queens Boulevard because they see the benefits. And guess what? Traffic didn't stall to a halt. Bike riders and pedestrians are traveling safely. And I think it's just really important. It's a really good lesson, and it's a really good project for us to really take the community impact in, but also let us not prevent from doing what we think is the safest thing to do for the city and for our partners in INTEC for the region.
Yeah, I love that comment. If I can say, generally we don't like to say plow through communities. We would say show leadership. The leadership, there's an important leadership element. Yet, per my point about responsiveness, we do have to be responsive to the public. We have to listen, but we also need to pair that with vision, with leadership, with making difficult choices. And I'll just say there's, a favorite quote that's been sort of coming up for this is, everyone wants progress, but no one wants change. And so sometimes you're just hearing a resistance to change, but then when you provide the progress, and I had this happen countless times in New York City and other places, a lot of concern and fear over the change, but ultimately, when you provide that system, when you provide that walkability, you get over that opposition hump, and then you're getting congratulated rather than.
Right.
Sure. Okay. I thought that was a beautiful segue into our most recent major change in New York City. And so I really appreciated you talking a touch about the congestion pricing. I think, in fact, we've seen this. The people who, in a recent poll, most liked it are, in fact, the drivers. And I really appreciated your two things. One, and NACTO's, yours and NACTO's sort of attention to what works in one place in an urban environment might not be the right treatment for a suburban environment or for a rural environment for that matter. And listening to the communities is part of how we figure that out, what works where. But the other thing that I really appreciated, especially in New York, right, where we are, and I'm at MTA, we are very transit focused, right, as we should be. This is the lifeblood of New York. I also, though, am the COO for MTA Bridges and Tunnels, a rubber on the road agency, right? We have the largest, we have 9 bridges and tunnels here in the region to connect everyone and to connect them with the rest of the world here. And the statement that we're not trying to get rid of vehicles, right? Not at all. As somebody who personally travels both using the car and also using transit regularly, right? I do what makes most sense, and I think a lot of people in urban environments, in fact, do that. What makes most sense on what particular day? All of the different modes are really critical here. And so that was very refreshing to hear that, and I look forward to hearing more of that. The final thing I will say is the people who most like congestion pricing in a recent poll, which was surprising to some folks, but for those of us who've been studying it in other countries, not so much, are in fact the drivers. And those are drivers across all walks of life, because what they're finding is they can actually get where they needed to go much more reliably and with shorter travel times, which has been a huge boon for people traveling personally and for people traveling for business. So thank you.
Thank you. So thanks so much, Commissioner Dominguez. Certainly, as a new county executive in Westchester County, so for us, looking at the geographic diversity of Westchester, as Allison was just pointing out, presents both opportunities and barriers for that active transportation. My hometown of Yonkers is the 3rd largest city in New York, and its urban environment necessitates a focus on a pedestrian network that's also safe for all users. We're looking forward to the completion of the project that we have in Yonkers to add bike lanes to our Jericho Turnpike, which is South Broadway. They usually say Broadway, Jericho Turnpikes, whichever things that are due. We're also trying to work through cutting through the noise to ensure the promotion of active transportation isn't going to be a threat to those who don't actually see themselves. Those are the ones in the onion, right, that are in the opposite there. They don't see themselves as cyclists. They don't see themselves really as pedestrians, but they're drivers, et cetera. So that active participation in transportation is going to give us an opportunity to have as many opportunities to accomplish the core planning objectives to prioritize mobility and safety for everyone. The Complete Streets program for us in Westchester is going to be essential for that focus, as you were pointing out in your presentation, including that work that's supported directly by NYMTC, along with the separate initiatives sponsored by the county to encourage the conversion of our streets into those places that promote pedestrian activity, safe biking, safer streets for the motor vehicles. From the presentation that you had, Ryan, is there additional things that we should be looking at?
Thank you. Well, I can't resist, but Yonkers is not a NACTO member and would be eligible to join the NACTO community.
We'll give a call to the mayor for that.
You can find our membership brochure online. I think I'd be interested in sort of putting it back to you is that yes, you'll get the pushback from the drivers, but also there's, you know, you really want to examine the data and use the data in your storytelling and your conversation. And I think we've gotten better as a profession saying like, well, this is where the crashes are and this is where the need is, or or here's the issue and thus the set of solutions that we'd like the community to help us refine. Sometimes what I find places are struggling with, well, but if you're getting those speed bump requests in the places where there isn't the crashes, what are you saying to them? And is your leadership have an ability? Do you have a system? Do you have a policy? In Oakland, we ended up writing an auto response. We ranked all of our locations and we had an auto response, you know, thank you for your request for a speed hump or a stop sign here, but ultimately, like, we've assessed our geography and it doesn't reach the line. So how can we be responsive to communities, and communicative, but you know, and then which will allow us to put those resources where the problem is. Thank you. There's one.
Yeah, I'm with the Department of City Planning. We did some work back in 2020 and 21 around micromobility, kind of when the city started seeing this explosion of e-bikes. It's not a good term, but real growth of e-bikes. I think we came up with some recommendations around parking and moving. And one of the things that was really helpful from NACTO was discussing different types of bike lanes. And, you know, we noticed that there were a lot of conflicts between, you know, manual bikes and e-bikes, and the bike lanes are sometimes a little bit small. So we recommended, you know, fast lanes or wider bike lanes. And, you know, the idea of maybe pioneering some traffic control measures for micromobility and bikes to kind of regulate that roadway a bit more. Because it's still, I think regulation of micromobility and bikes is kind of still in its infancy. So I think NACTO did some really interesting work around that, and we used it in our discussions with DOT, and you know, there've been a lot more wider bike lanes being installed now, which is great because you need to accommodate these different types of mobility now. So.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and New York City DOT is an NACTO member, of course, and has been doing fantastic work. Commissioner Rodriguez and the team I used to work with there, seeing them improve upon what I used to do there has been, yeah, hurts a little bit sometimes, but it's been great to see.
All right, I'll just say, I know you were trying to highlight some dollars here and how funds are expended across the board. And I would offer that I think you can use New York as a great example of how dollars are actually flexed in a very robust way for transit, both federal dollars across the board as well as state dollars. Given the record level of investment in transit that we've seen, including not just CMAQ dollars, but operating assistance across the board for MTA and all the transit agencies. So I think Pennsylvania is, the article that you put up there on Pennsylvania and how they're starting to do it, I think it's great. We've had discussions with the state and with SEPTA on what they're looking at going forward. But a lot of it is, as Allison was pointing out, is we've got such incredible resources here and I mean resources meaning like how we've actually operated our transit, that it's cut ground in a lot of new ways. So I appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah, well, we think the conversation between the cities and the states is like the next innovative frontier, and we're going to be working in 2025 on a report that highlights sort of the wins and success stories to try to, it's a lot easier for us to talk about DC policy. You got to like win in one place, but like we have to win kind of at 50 levels, or we want to see progress at the 50 states, and we would love to highlight New York State. So if we could follow up, or you have a member of your team reach out and sort of we could get together that case study on how that's working, and we'd love to lift it up.
Look forward to that. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you so very much, Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, what do we have next, Adam?
Senator DiCarlo.
Okay, Senator DiCarlo.
Okay, we're going to now move on to the public participation item on the agenda. We will hear from these participants in the order they registered to speak. Each registered speaker will be given 3 minutes to offer their statement. We ask that each registered speaker limit your comments to relevant transportation and planning-related items. When I call your name, please use one of the standing microphones in the front of the stage. Our first registered speaker is Murray Bowden, Concerned Grandparents. Topic, New York State Transportation Commissioner.
It's on.
It's on. The floor is yours.
One of the things we have to understand is that if we're going to teach the younger generation to speak at meetings, we teach them how to use a microphone, right? Some of you know me, some of you don't. I have dementia. I can't remember. I have to ask who you are. I remember a lot of things, but not one of those. I've been in this business a long time. Some of you think you know what's going on, and you don't. I, at this time, asked somebody to take our Commissioner of Transportation, sitting right up there, and remove her from office immediately because she fails to enforce that manual and uniform traffic control devices that Ryan spoke of before. Your files are full of my emails showing where your information is against that manual and causing accidents. So if we don't start at the top to solve the problem, it doesn't get solved. I changed. The last time I came here in an electric wheelchair. I learned how to do things differently. Spoke to Ken before the meeting. We're going to meet and talk about how to go forward in Westchester County. Some of the rest of you have seen me at other meetings. I've been around a long time. I can't do it anymore. It's your turn. Not your turn. It's the younger generation's turn. When you make a mistake and somebody takes you and teaches you the right way to do it, and you understand your mistake and you say, I don't do that anymore, I will not do that anymore, you get sent back right to work. The mistakes that you made 10 years ago are irrelevant today. We're going forward, and we need a younger generation to take us forward. I didn't hear what you said, so 30 seconds. So the chief thing I have to say today is you need to resign, and somebody needs to take your job that's willing to make safe roads, to obey that manual of uniform traffic control devices. It's got mistakes, and they can be fixed, but you're not fixing them. Retire or be fired.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
By the way, I'm leaving because I have a physical therapy session this afternoon, and it'll take me some time to get there.
No. Be safe. Our next speaker is Gary Hewitt, who's from the Queens Community Board Number 10, Transportation Chair. Mr. Hewitt, is he here?
I'll skip.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are the only two who registered to speak, so we'll move on from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. At this point in time, we'll begin the action items that we need to move through. All of the material for these items has been posted on the NYMTC website at www.nymtc.org. As we progress through the action items, I request that all voting members announce your name, the agency that you represent, when you make a motion or you second a motion. The first action item is to accept the February 29, 2024 meeting synopsis. May I have a motion?
Stephen Powers from Rockland County moves the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Robert DiCarlo from Nassau County, seconds.
Is there any discussion? Does anyone object to the motion? Hearing no objections, the meeting synopsis is accepted. Thank you. The next action item is to adopt Resolution 2025-1, Council Adoption of State Fiscal Year 2025 through 26 Unified Planning Work Program. Seitu Allen of NYMTC staff will give an overview of the program, and we'll go from there. Seitu?
Great. So good afternoon, council members. Good afternoon, everyone in attendance. This will be a brief overview of the Unified Planning Work Program that's been proposed for state fiscal year 2025 through 2026. That covers the period between April 1st, 2025 and March of 2026. So before going into the UPWP, like most of the work that NYMTC does, it is guided by the long-range plan. The current plan, Planning 2050, was adopted and rather effective October 1st of 2021. And that plan was developed with the member agencies and NYMTC staff to develop a shared vision for the region. And that shared vision relates to issues related to safety and security, reliable and easy travel, planning for changing demand, reducing environmental impacts, and resiliency. As Adam mentioned in his executive director's report, NYMTC, of course, is developing a new plan which is expected to be adopted and in place by October 1st of this calendar year. So in general, what is the Unified Planning Work Program? The Unified Planning Work Program describes how NYMTC will use federal transportation planning dollars for transportation planning activities throughout the NYMTC planning area. It also describes other transportation activities that are not funded through the UPWP, but they are included in the document for informational and collaborative purposes. It is primarily NYMTC's annual budget, and it also is a type of grant application wherein its approval each year by the federal agencies enables federal funding to flow into the NYMTC planning area for planning work. So NYMTC's UPWP can be thought of as having two main portions or parts. The first part is a core program planning section, and then there's also a discretionary planning section. So this chart here shows you the overall metropolitan transportation planning process, which reflects the work that the MPO is required to do under federal regulations. And even though the UPWP is what's circled, we'll start with the plan, and the plan, the Regional Transportation Plan, that is the document that NYMTC develops and updates every 4 years, which defines the long-range needs for the NYMTC planning area. So NYMTC is currently developing a new regional transportation plan, Plan 2055, which, as mentioned, is expected to be adopted and in place by October 1st of this calendar year. And that document is updated every four years. Then we have the Unified Planning Work Program, which NYMTC updates every year. And through this document, NYMTC first defines, or rather works on the required planning work, the core program work, but NYMTC, through the UPWP, also funds lots of studies, many of which are managed by the member agencies, which helps the MPO to define the improvements that might be necessary for the NYMTC transportation system. Then we go forward and we have the Transportation Improvement Program, and this is a product that defines the schedule and funding for transportation improvement projects in the region. And this is another product that NYMTC is hard at work on developing, and it's another product that is expected, a new tip will be adopted and in place probably by October 1st of 2025 this year. In addition, NYMTC has various analytical requirements, and one of those requirements is to understand the impact of the projects and programs in the plan and the TIP on congestion and air quality in the region. So through the planning process, through the development of the plan and the TIP, NYMTC staff also attempts to understand the impact of those projects and programs on congestion and emissions throughout the region. And finally, and this is more related to the work of the member agencies, we have the project planning and implementation, which is the implementation of actual improvement projects throughout the NYMTC planning area. In addition to what's on this core program table, or chart, excuse me, NYMTC has a lot of supporting activities, and some of the highlights of the work that NYMTC is expecting to do over the upcoming program year includes the beginning of a new regional household travel survey. NYMTC has started and will continue developing work on developing a new website for the MPO. There will also be updates to the TIG and also other data collection activities that NYMTC will undertake throughout the program year. So moving on from the core program, as mentioned before, NYMTC also has a discretionary program, and in the current UPWP, there are roughly 50 discretionary activities proposed for inclusion in next year's work program. The next two slides just have a sample of a few of the studies that are in that document, and they cover a lot of different areas, and we'll just look at a couple. So in terms of safety, Rockland County is currently working on a Clarkstown safety and sustainability study for their Route 303 and 304 study, corridor, excuse me. The New York City MTA is doing a New York City transit platform barrier study. Then moving on to freight, there are several studies in the work program, especially from a city planning and city DOT, and those include things like an industrial freight land use planning study, as well as a last mile facilities and package delivery industry study. And then moving on, we have various sub-area studies, data collection activities, and transportation improvement projects. NYMTC staff will be doing a planning and environmental linkages study, the Northern Westchester East-West Corridor study, excuse me. New York City DOT is going to be doing a York Avenue transportation study. Nassau County in the work program has proposed to potentially do micro-planning studies throughout that county. The MTA is also proposing in the upcoming work program a customer survey sampling efficiency study. And then we have transit improvements, which include, for example, a transit-oriented development analysis being proposed by Westchester County, as well as Putnam County, which is proposing to study their overall public transit system within that county, excuse me. So in terms of the overall work program, there's roughly $67 million programmed in 425-26. This includes both new funding that has been allocated to the MPO for 25-26, as well as old funding from prior program years that's being brought into next year's program. In terms of the overall program, roughly 40% is going to roughly 60% is going to NYMTC staff, and NYMTC does pass through a considerable amount of funding to its member agencies. So for the upcoming program year, roughly 40% of the overall program is going to be passed through to the member agencies. In terms of the overall work, NYMTC staff focus tends to be on the core program work, and for the planning activities that are being managed by the member agencies through the funding that they receive, most of that work relates to NYMTC's discretionary program. So again, thank you. This is really a collaborative effort between NYMTC staff and the member agencies. It's been thanks to everyone at NYMTC staff and the member agencies for your work in developing this program. And I'd also like to give a shout out to a few of my colleagues who are more directly involved in the development of this document and the management of it. So Jumi Lee, Milton Loperena, as well as my colleagues Joy Britton and Kimberly Estes. So thanks to everyone. And at this time, NYMTC requests that the council please adopt this UPWP.
All right, thank you, Setu. Does anybody have any questions? All right, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the State Fiscal Year Unified Plan UPWP.
Ken Jenkins, Westchester County. So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, New York City DOT, on behalf of Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, we're going to vote by roll call, starting with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County. Okay, Rockland County.
Aye.
Westchester County.
Aye.
Long Island, Nassau County.
Aye.
Suffolk County.
Aye.
New York City DOT.
Aye.
New York City Department of City Planning.
Aye.
Finally, MTA.
Aye.
And New York State DOT also votes aye. I think by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Thank you. All right, next, we're going to look at the adoption of Resolution 2025-2, which is the recognition of service by former Westchester County Executive George Latimer as principal member of the council. This resolution expresses NYMTC's appreciation to Congressman Latimer for his service as the principal member of the council, including his previous service as co-chair. During his tenure, he was an active council member with a regional vision who truly helped shape the future of Westchester County as well as the larger metropolitan region. And I, for one, really enjoyed the opportunity to share responsibilities with him as he was co-chair of NYMTC. But we also thank him for his service, for his vision, for his leadership, and wish him well in his new role as a member of Congress. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring Congressman George Latimer?
Kenneth Jenkins, County Executive, Westchester County. So moved.
I will take that.
Robert DiCarlo, Nassau County, I second that motion.
All right. Thank you both very much. Any discussion? All right. Hearing no objections, can do a quick, any objections? All right. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much to Congressman Latimer. All right, our third resolution is to recognize service for the co-chair of Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. The resolution expresses NYMTC's appreciation to County Executive Blakeman for his service as the council's co-chair during the 2024 program year. Do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
Darnell Tyson, Suffolk County, on behalf of County Executive Romaine, makes a motion.
Thank you very, very much. Do I have a second?
Stephen Powers from Rockland County seconds the motion.
Thank you. All right, are there any objections? All right, hearing none, we greatly appreciate County Executive Blakeman. I know he wasn't able to join us today. We appreciate you being here today, but I will also offer Special Advisor DiCarlo, if there's anything you want to say, the opportunity to say a few words, or your representative.
Just on behalf of our county executive, we thank you and we enjoyed his service here.
Thank you very much. All right, the next action item is to introduce our new co-chair and kind of look at the days ahead here. So, as per the Memorandum of Understanding for the Council, the co-chair is rotated annually among the 3 NYMTC Transportation Coordinating Committees. Last year, the co-chair was selected from the Nassau-Suffolk Transportation Coordinating Committee. This year, the co-chair has been selected from the New York City Transportation Coordinating Committee. And so we greatly appreciated that Commissioner of New York City DOT, Adonis Rodriguez, was able to join us. He has been selected to be the co-chair for this new program year. Thank you for stepping up. I know he had to leave early, but we greatly appreciate his service and stepping into this role. Paul, is there anything you want to share with us?
Just on behalf of Commissioner Rodriguez, I gladly accept his co-chair for years 2025, 2026, and we're very excited to be a contributing partner to NYMTC.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I believe that concludes today's meeting. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Robert DiCarlo, Nassau County, I make the motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second, in my powers as co-chair.
I'll be sure to share that with Commissioner Rodriguez. All right, does anyone object to the motion? Otherwise, hearing no objections, thank you all very, very much. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your participation and your collaboration. Travel safely, everyone.